1979 action thriller film by Walter Hill. It's got quite a cult following these days, I think, if you go to Coney Island. This one's been... we've got the irons in the fire for this one for quite a while now. It's good to try and get round to it. Tom, I think initially it was your suggestion, was it not? The Warriors.
It was, yeah.
What made you want to throw it back to 1979 initially, and The Warriors? I'd never actually heard of it until you suggested it.
I'd heard of it before, and then my favourite TV show is Anthony Bourdain in Parts Unknown, and I'd just done season 1 to 12 again, and one of the final seasons, he does it about the East Village in New York in like the 1980s, because he used to be like a heroin addict and coke addict when he was a chef when he was younger. So they were doing like how New York used to be grimy and the story like gentrification. And they back referenced the film quite a few times and how it influenced some of the music of the time. It was quite like, it's a really interesting like episode. If you just want to watch like a one-off episode, I recommend it, because he talks about the origins of punk and how Sex Pistols actually stole a lot of their image from this guy called Richard Hell. But anyway, it's where a lot of the image for it came from was this movie, and I'd heard about it as quite a cult film as well, and it was something different that we hadn't watched, and I just thought it'd be worth a go. It had been on my list, and I'd seen a few snippets of the famous line that we're all probably going to reference of, "Can you dig it?" And I was like, that one scene, it was cool enough for me to pick it as my choice.
Yeah, I a couple of those scenes actually, the Can You Dig It and the Warriors one, the guy, Warriors! I've seen that before, I had no idea what that was from until seeing this, like, oh shit, this is it, okay, cool. The, yeah, it's like like you say, it's not quite like something we've watched before, it's sort of a journey film, isn't it? They're going from A to B the entire time, and that's sort of, they're not derailed in different subplots that much. It's more just the group themselves get split up. Jem, initially, could you just get your initial thoughts on the film as a whole?
No, so we actually watched the 2005 director's cut edition, which I spoke to Guy about this, but the other guys, basically the editor or the director put in quite a few scenes that not like deleted scenes or like say extended scenes like something like Lord of the Rings, but the the comic book cuts between scenes that it looked very out of place actually. Not in the sort of stylization, but just in the fact that you could tell that they were more recent, because it looked like recent animation versus the late 70s actual production. And I personally didn't much like them. I think, and I'd seen that people didn't much like them, and I concur with a lot of people that I don't think it added anything, and I think it was a bit jarring. But other than that, I quite liked the film. It was certainly interesting. As you say, there's a lot of iconic scenes and iconic, just stylization choices of just having the different gangs. And I thought it was interesting about the way that it started off with sometime in the future, and then a lot of it wasn't that crazy futuristic, but at the same time it didn't really build the world that much outside of Coney Island and that sort of tiny little stretch of streets and a couple of subways to get to, or from where they were to where they ended up on Coney Island. And I think it could have built the world a bit better, but at the same time it might not have needed it. I just thought that it would have been a bit more interesting with a bit of a background as to why there was all of a sudden this huge gang turf warfare. And it seemed when you first watch it that there's nothing else of New York other than these gangs now. But then actually when they get on the train with the girl and the guys on like after their prom night or something like that, there obviously is this normal side of New York that did exist, as well as these thousands of gangs running about who all look like teenagers. But I thought it was interesting. Just to see what you guys think.
What you said director's cut was 2005. This was the one we've watched.
I think so. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I mean, you do notice straight away with the comic book stuff. I didn't know it was director's cut. I was like, God damn, this is really, really good quality for. But even the film itself is actually quite good quality for the late 70s.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you said.
It reminded me of Sin City. those
Yeah,
the sort of comic book boards
yeah,
type presentation.
yeah. In terms of world building, yeah, go on, Tom.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say I didn't actually mind the comic book
Yeah, me neither.
cuts. I thought it played in. I mean, it's like a heavily stylized film, so it kind of plays in with the over-the-top aesthetic that everything's based on. But I think in your point, Jem, on it saying sometime in the future, I think it's because it's meant to be like a social commentary of the underworld, sort of played out in this kind of stylistic kind of vision. So it's, at the time, New York was like a really rough city riddled with crime. So I think it was trying to show what the degradation could be of it from the underworld's point of view. But I really liked a lot of the quirks and the cutscenes in between it. Between the lady on the radio, I thought those parts were really clever to move the story along, and I thought the music throughout was brilliant as well. I thought that added to the overall aesthetic to me personally, because I mean, if we're being honest, it sounds like we've all kind of enjoyed the film, and I personally really, really liked it. But when you take a step back, I mean, it's terrible acting and the dialogue's atrocious, but it's the style and the aesthetic to me that keep you interested and make it a compulsive watch for the hour and 30 runtime or whatever it is. So I personally quite like those quirks, to be honest, in between the scenes, because otherwise it would have been quite a linear, played out story.
Yeah, I enjoyed the comic book cuts. James, did you enjoy it as much as everyone else?
I didn't enjoy the film. Yeah. I think that the reasons that you've mentioned about the aesthetic of it, the fact that it had a very distinctive style, they were the positives that I took out of the film, but the fucking acting was terrible. Oh my god, it was so bad. Everything was so wooden. There's a reason those actors have never been seen again on anything. It's because they cannot act. The woman actress in it, the one with the dark hair who they meet at the start and tags along with them.
She pissed me off so much.
She is just a scene killer. Like, she just kind of cannot. She could not act. Like, there was quite a few moments where I think she gets split up with the main guy at some point, and they're off on their own. And I think out of any of the characters, he was probably the one that, like, he could hold a scene, like, and he had like kind of that like stoic kind of leader persona, and he played it reasonably well. But then as soon as those two are paired off together, I was just like, I'd no longer buy anything that either of his characters say, because she was that bad. I thought the writing was really poor. Like, I didn't think the lines felt very natural or well delivered. So probably a bit of a combination of if you ever got a bad actor delivering half decent lines, the lines sound worse because they're in the hands of a bad actor. And for me, that's why I honestly I couldn't watch it for some parts of it. I just got distracted on my phone at times, and it very rarely happens for me. Very, very rarely happens for me. More because I was on my phone. It's like, these guys cannot have been in anything since. And I was like, they weren't in anything.
Straight up savage, really.
But there was some cool things, elements that they did really well. The thing I was going to mention, which you've already said, Tom, was the woman with the radio, and I thought the way that was shot was cool. But as you said, how they managed to use her voicing of the radio and the sound, the choices of the songs to kind of push the narrative on further was, I think, probably the really cool, interesting part of it, which I've never seen done before, anything like that, which I thought was great. But on the whole, I didn't think it was a good film at all.
It'd be interesting to see why it did become such a cult classic, whether that's because of just the time it came out and sort of, you know, whether that was the height of gang activity in the 70s in New York, or whether it's a sort of a group of people that were you know, around 18 or sort of, you know, 15 to 30 that watched it and identified with it and enjoyed it at the time, and they've now grown up, and so it's just got this huge cult following between people of that time. I think if it was to come out in a sort of more modern version now, it just wouldn't land in anywhere near the same way.
Quite